Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. So many lies, so much deception, so many ridiculously unprovable claims. Essentially, another day with the Democrats. There's so much to talk about when it comes to Joe Biden's fall of Afghanistan, and it's very similar to what we saw on January 6th. A lot of people had initial reactions to what was going on, but as information started to trickle out, there was a lot more nuance. There was a lot more to the story than just met the eye initially. And this is exactly what's going on in Afghanistan. Off face value, the Democrats were running with the defense that this was a deal that was signed by a previous administration. But as we get more and more information, we start to realize, and I think the American people are starting to realize, that this whole thing is falling on Joe. The total incompetence of this administration, the total incompetence of this American potato that is Joe Biden, is starting to unravel. The media is saying one thing, but the truth, the facts, and what the American voters are seeing is telling a whole different story. So let's get into all of the lies, all of the deception, and most importantly, let's absolutely derail the Democrat narrative. So we've got a lot of information to cover, folks, multiple narratives to dismantle, but before we get into any of it, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so we tend to have a focus on the media, and of course for this video, that doesn't change. MSNBC's Nicole Wallace says 95% of the American people will agree with everything Joe Biden said in his Afghanistan speech.
95% of the American people will agree with everything he just said. 95% of the press covering this White House will disagree. And for an American president to finally be completely aligned with such an overwhelming majority of what the American people think about Afghanistan is probably a tremendous relief to the American people.
Nicole Wallace is quickly becoming the biggest clown on American television. 95% of the American people will agree with everything the president just said? You've got to be kidding me. Not to mention how disingenuous her claim is, how dishonest it is to say that Joe Biden's the first president to have the view on Afghanistan that Americans shouldn't be fighting there. That's exactly what Donald Trump ran on. The only reason that Joe Biden was removing American presence within the country was because of the work that Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo did in the first place. What Americans don't agree with is the fact that he screwed everything up when it came to the exit. And here's where Nicole Wallace and MSNBC lose total credibility. Pollster awards Biden an F rating on tone-deaf Afghanistan speech. We have real-time grading from independents, Republicans, and Democrats alike. With the clip that I'm about to show you shows real-time data, the blue line representing Democrats, red Republicans, and yellow independents.
We've made it clear to the Taliban, if they attack our personnel or disrupt our operation, the U.S. presence will be swift and the response will be swift and forceful. Our current military mission will be short in time, limited in scope, and focused in its objectives. Get our people and our allies as safely as quickly as possible.
Nicole Wallace claims that 95% of Americans will agree with everything that Joe Biden said, yet Joe Biden could barely keep Democrat approval above 60%. Independents, essentially mirroring conservatives, below 40% approval and dropping depending on the point of his speech. Turns out MSNBC's Nicole Wallace doesn't know what she's talking about and is once again just another media shill for the Democrat establishment. You cannot get as dishonest as that. Well, actually, maybe you can. Joe Biden and the Democrat establishment always take being disingenuous or being dishonest to a whole other level. We covered Joe Biden's speech yesterday. We also covered the talking points that Nancy Pelosi had crafted for the Democrat response to the Afghanistan crisis. They said specifically that they had planned for every single contingency. The Biden administration was ready. Well, as expected, that was a bald-faced lie. And U.S. Army veteran Matt Zeller went off on MSNBC, absolutely blasting the network and, of course, by extension, the dishonest Biden administration that was not prepared whatsoever in their Afghanistan withdrawal.
So I'm curious to hear your reaction of this consequential speech by the American president. Didn't run from it. He owned it. He owned his decision. He owned the fact that, as he put it, the buck stops with him.
I hope he gets to own their deaths, too. I feel like I watched a different speech than the rest of you guys. I was appalled. There was such a profound, bold-faced lie in that speech. The idea that we planned for every contingency. I have been personally trying to tell this administration since it took office. I've been trying to tell our government for years that this was coming. We sent them plan after plan on how to evacuate these people. Nobody listened to us. They didn't plan for the evacuation of our Afghan wartime allies. They're trying to conduct it now at the 11th hour. The thing that they were most concerned about was the optics of a chaotic evacuation. Well, they got exactly what they were most concerned of by failing to do what was right when we could have done it. We had all the people and equipment in place to be able to save these people months ago, and we did nothing. I'm appalled that he thinks we only need to take 2,000 people. There's 86,000 people who are currently left behind in Afghanistan alone. We've identified all of them for the government. I have no idea why he claims that people don't want to leave Afghanistan. I have a list of 14,000 names right now of people who want to get out of Afghanistan.
He is absolutely correct. That is why the American people, and more specifically, non-Democrat partisans, Republicans, and independents, are giving Joe Biden such a terrible grade on this one. Again, the Democrats are playing PR games trying to shift the focus on finally ending the Afghanistan war. That credit goes to Trump. Botching the execution of the withdrawal, that blame goes to Joe Biden. Military experts had lobbied the Biden administration for months to get Americans and American allies out of the country just in case things go astray. The Biden administration did not listen, and then even on top of that, leaving billions of dollars of military equipment for the Afghans. A bald-faced lie. Biden and Nancy Pelosi claiming they planned for every single contingency, but it seems as though they never had a plan in the first place. Rings a bell now, doesn't it? Joe Biden claiming he has a plan for the pandemic, a plan for the border, a plan for pretty much everything. He's gonna undo everything that Donald Trump did and incorporate his plan. When he got into office, he either had no plan or just plagiarized what the president already did. And turns out on this one, he lied in the exact same manner. They had a plan for every single outcome. Pentagon spokesman admits there's no plan to help Americans trapped in Afghanistan get to the airport. I don't have an answer to that question, Pentagon, when asked if the US plans to keep weapons out of the Taliban's hand. There was no plan. And that's why we're seeing videos now of Taliban troops taking joyrides in American helicopters with American gear over Herat, Afghanistan. This is happening right here because of the lack of planning, because of the incompetence of the potato-in-chief, piss pants my butt's been wiped Biden. It's pretty much as simple as that. And based on the video that I just showed you guys, I thought the Taliban didn't have an air force. How is it that they're able to operate a helicopter and fly it so smoothly and so confidently? Well, it turns out we have the answer to that one. I present to you a documentary piece from May 27, 2013 from Vice News. This is what winning looks like full length. And I'll show you a tiny little excerpt right over here.
I mean, Taliban attacks are up, civilian casualties are up, fatalities for the Afghan soldiers and police are up. 310 a month is the latest estimate, every month. If that's not civil war already, I don't know what is. And you get the impression these guys aren't going to last either. I mean, certainly when they're on their own, they're not going to last. I mean, I spoke to a few Afghan friends who come from here and said, you know, what do you think is going to happen to these guys after we really leave? He said half will join the Taliban, the other half will just vanish.
I spoke to a few Afghan friends who come from here and said, what do you think is going to happen to these guys after we really leave? This was during the first troop withdrawal, I believe in 2014. They said half will join the Taliban, half will just vanish. That individual piloting the helicopter in the video that I showed you previously is most likely an Afghan military man that US soldiers trained. We gave them arms, we gave them money, we gave them training, and the moment we turned our back, Afghan soldiers that Americans spent taxpayer dollars on and American military trained and armed immediately turned around and joined the Taliban forces. The writing was on the wall. The Pentagon, military officials, Joe Biden and his administration had all of the information that they needed to know that things could go astray real quick. And they did not have plans just in case things went bad. They were operating on some sort of incompetent level of naivete that's just unbelievable. unfathomable, as if Afghan soldiers had some sort of undying loyalty to the Pentagon and American presence. What an absolute naive oversight. The fact of the matter is, Joe Biden had no plan. The fact of the matter is, they just pulled out and asked questions later, and now at the final hour are scrambling to evacuate and save American lives, but most importantly, are probably more focused on scrambling to save their own behinds, playing the PR game instead of focusing on truly taking responsibility and doing something about it. Ex-Obama advisor says Biden should fire his national security advisor over botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Yeah, shift the blame on somebody else. Once again, I thought the buck stopped with Biden. Biden shouldn't fire his national security advisor. Joe Biden, sleepy piss pants Biden, should resign in shame. An absolute monumental disaster, a disgrace from this truly disgraced, incompetent president. The more information comes out, the more we realize this had nothing to do. There is absolutely not a shred of blame that can be placed onto Donald Trump. The writing was on the wall. The Biden administration had all of the warning signs. They knew exactly what the threats were. They underestimated them. Completely naive, considering American leadership is probably at its weakest point on the world stage ever, with Sleepy Joe at the head of the ship, and they got played like the fools that they are and are now scrambling to save face and to shift blame on anybody but themselves. That's not leadership. That is Democrat incompetence. It's either incompetence or something at the back of my mind tells me it's some sort of twisted plan where they knew this was going to happen in the first place. They wanted it to happen to try to create some sort of scenario, some sort of reason where they can have logic to continue American presence within Afghanistan and the Middle East. And God, I hope that's not the case, but I really wouldn't put anything past these deep state warmongering politicians. That would be as naive as it gets, and I'd look like a total hypocrite, calling out the naivete of Joe Biden and his lackeys while being equally naive myself. But of course, we'll just have to see what happens, see how this whole thing plays out. What an absolute mess. We'll be following all of it. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.